Anyway, Tye, thank you so much for doing this. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully my accent won't be too bad and you'll be able to understand me. I dare say you've watched So I Married an Axe Murderer that many times. You're pretty good at the Scottish accent.
Move that melon of yours and get the paper if you can.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's such a good movie. So anyway, Tye, yeah, as I says, I'm a college sound production lecturer, and I always enjoy getting people like yourselves' perspective within the music industry, but also the importance of your musical journey as well. So I've got a few topics here. Hopefully we'll get through them all. If you are restricted to any time, please just let me know, and we can call it a day. But yeah, so Tye, your early musical journey, what was it that first interested you within music and got you to play basically the instruments that you play, particularly the bass guitar?
Well, the journey started when I was probably about 9 years old, and my brothers were 6 and 7 years older than me, and they were really into music, and they were, trying to play in bands even though they didn't know how to play music. So my oldest brother, he was a major influence as far as like getting me into bands. Like, I think the first band I really fell in love with was U2.
All right.
And I wanted to play the guitar because of the edge. And so 9 years old, I basically begged my parents to get me a guitar. And at the same time, my brother got a bass. So I played guitar for, I mean, it took me a long time to actually kind of figure out what was going on. Even though I was really into it, I kind of wasn't interested in learning, but I was interested in doing it. But so I kind of messed around with the guitar a little bit. Jane's Addiction, like listening to the Nothing Shocking record. When that kind of first came out, I'd realized it was bass heavy. So I started playing my brother's bass. And around the same time, he was getting records like from Stanley Clarke. And I heard this slap thing, and I was like, oh man, I want to do that.
Oh, yeah. Slap a little bass.
So I would say I became interested in becoming a full-fledged bass player once I heard Les Claypool. And that was like the end of 1990. I don't think Sailing Seas of Cheese was out yet from Primus, but I was listening to Frizzle Fry and trying to learn that stuff, not knowing how difficult it was.
Right,
just watching videos, seeing the technique and going, oh, okay, I'll try that. Okay, I'll try this.
That's the thing, Tye. Sorry to interrupt you there. That's the thing that I try to reiterate to students. I mean, I teach guitar privately as well.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys do not know how lucky you are to have YouTube. I mean, us old school musicians, we had to use our ears and try to decipher what exactly are these guys doing. Which I think is incredible.
There was a lot of figuring out because we could watch like their videos, and we were lucky if they put out something that was live, because then you'd be like, oh, okay, I could actually see their fingers and stuff. But a lot of like, even just before I knew how to tune the instrument, like I would open catalogs and find like the guitar that mine was.
Right.
And I would set up the tuners according to what was in the catalog, because just a lot of trial and error, a lot of failure.
Absolutely.
Just trying to figure it out, like having the desire but no know-how. So there was what's like Claypool came around there. All the videos that we had a thing called request video. So what we would do is we would request, like I would request John the Fisherman, and I would sit there every single day. It came on like after school for like an hour, and I'd have my VHS player like set up, and if they played it, I would record it. And then sometimes it took like weeks or more for them,
Yeah.
for them to do it.
Yep.
So then I would finally get the video that I'm looking for, and I see he's doing this drumming technique and doing this, and it's like, thank God it's more of a musician band that they wouldn't necessarily mime. They would actually play
it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, even though they're not plugged in or whatever.
Yeah.
So watching those is kind of like, okay, that's how he does that raking strum thing. Okay, this is how he's slapping next to where the neck meets the body. Like, okay, so it's got to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I think one of the most frustrating things, certainly that I found when I was growing up playing guitar, was it would just get to the guitar solo, and you were like, right, I'm finally going to get to see what his fingers are doing, and then the camera would pan to like another musician in the band. You're going, I've waited so long for this.
It's still happening for me, because if someone's not doing, like, if I want to learn something and I don't want to sit there and figure it out forever, I'll just YouTube it real quick.
Yeah.
Or I'll just go online, and especially if it's like a line that you don't really, it's not that super popular. Just like, what is he doing?
What's he doing?
And it's always the same thing. They're always panning right off.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got it.
Man, that's it. No, definitely. But yeah, it's totally changed days now. And again, I'm going to get into the technology a wee bit later. So you mentioned U2 there. I've actually just finished Bono's book.
Awesome.
It is awesome. I highly recommend it. It does talk a lot about the edge and about the edgy sound, which I found quite fascinating. Was there any other bands that influenced you as a player and helped you through your journey?
Yeah, well, there's, I was, my brothers were into different things. So my older brother, but they were really into music. So my oldest brother introduced me to Jane's Addiction, Bad Brains. He liked more of the metal stuff that I really never got into. I mean, there was like maybe Iron Maiden, obviously as a little kid, Kiss. But start when hair metal started coming out, or like I would say like heavy metal started turning into like this hair rock.
Yeah.
Where it was like bands like Guns N' Roses were kind of the end of what was cool and heavy, and then it was going into the hair stuff.
Yeah.
And all that I didn't like, but my other brother was listening to like the Smiths and Duran Duran and Depeche Mode. So I was kind of getting all of that, like especially like Duran Duran was, what John Taylor was monster bass player, and I loved his playing, and that, like with the Jane's Addiction and so those were like, U2 I think was the band that like made me go, I want to play music. But after that it became, what was kind of popular at the time on the heavy end and on the more of the, I don't know what you call that, new row, or all that English kind of dance,
right? Okay,
but dark at the same time.
Yeah.
Then there was a lot of periods of going through different stuff. So that was the first stuff that I got into. After that, I got into industrial music for a while.
All right, okay.
And which is kind of weird because it's not so player orientated.
Yeah, totally.
It was just, I just really dug the like. It was like heavy, but also synthesized heavy. Yeah, and loops and all that stuff. I thought that was really cool.
I think, Tye, I mean, certainly from my point of view as well, I really love stuff like industrial music and experimental, and seeing what can you come up with that is out with my comfort zone as a guitar player. I think it's pretty important to keep up with of how music's evolving. And I mean, you mentioned the Smiths there. I mean, that's something I really liked about Johnny Marr. I was a big Johnny Marr fan, and in his book, funny enough, he talks about that, how he went out of his comfort zone, and when he started collaborating with other musicians, he was trying to write guitar riffs for this genre of music that technically hadn't even existed yet. So no, I think as a musician, I think we all try to strive for not the next best thing, but just something to keep us on our toes so it doesn't get too stagnant. Would you agree with that, or?
You know what's too bad with Johnny Marr is even though he gets a lot of respect, and I feel like a lot of guitar players that might not be into that kind of genre should listen to him and try to pick up some of his stuff because he's phenomenal. Every time I listen to him, I go, dude, this guy's just all over the place. Yep. You know, he's got his own sound, his own style.
It's phenomenal.
It's amazing. It's till this day because my kids are, you know, they really listen to a lot of the music that I grew up with and that I like, but it's different when they're learning something because they're all musicians. And when they start learning something, I listen to it a little differently. And, you know, they've been playing a lot of Jeff Buckley, a lot of Smiths, Elliott Smith. And I'm just like, God, this is such cool, complicated stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that's so beautiful and melodic at the same time.
Yeah.
And I never really, even though I would listen to it, I never really picked it up and learned those songs. And I'm like, God, I wish I would have.
Yeah.
My vocabulary, as far as what happens on my fingers, would have just been, you know, ginormous because of like those 2 or 3 artists right there.
Totally. I mean, Johnny Marr, I've got a couple of friends who love the Smiths. One of them, Kev Warsdale. I shout to Kev, and my friend Scott Beattie, so I shout to him. And I always remember Kev especially telling me, Barry, look at his guitar work, it's so intricate. I tried to play This Charming Man as Johnny Marr plays it. Tye, I cannot replicate it. And I like to think I'm a good guitar player. I don't know what it is. It's his feel, it's his touch. It's incredible. It is absolutely incredible. The things that he comes up with. But even like you mentioned Elliott Smith there, that guy's chord progressions blow my mind. It's how he makes all of these chords work together. I'm like, oh my God, it sounds so genius.
When I first started playing guitar, it was all about the, even though I couldn't do it, I wanted to be amazed by shredding guitar players. And once I really started, like, you know, getting more into guitar or listening to bands like Steely Dan, that's where I was just like, it's all about chord progressions. Yeah. Like chord progressions where it's at. Guys that can come up with cool good chords and string them together is way cooler than guys that can shred on the guitar.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah. And I think it's even more impressive when you get all those different chord progressions, but then able to put in a bass line to fit those chord progressions, a bit of lead guitar to fit that, and it's like, to me that's the heart of music. I mean, don't get me wrong, the whole 1-4-5 chord progression, it may have its place, certainly in pop music, but when it gets right down to it, to me, that's music. Absolutely. Yeah. So
I'm the same way. I'm kind of like good chord progression. So our trick with, like, say, the Meek band, our trick is trying to keep it down to 2 chords.
All right. Okay.
Like 2 chord progressions. So it's like, pick something that's interesting where it's 2 chords. The cool thing about that is that I can come up with a melodic bass line, you know, and now it becomes an orchestration. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Because you got chord progression, then we add keys, and it's always like melodies of either guitar or whatever. And that's kind of the whole thing, is like you get a cool, simple chord progression and you create all these stacks of melodies and movements and harmonies. Yeah. And now you have a rock orchestration. You know what I mean?
Totally. I mean, one of the first tracks that was brought to my attention was obviously the Beatles' Tomorrow Never Knows. That same C chord. And again, just how they managed, obviously drum loop recording, and then bringing up faders with weird sounds. So trying to create something that's out with your comfort zone, I think, is extremely important.
I'd have to say that my probably one of my favorite Beatle tracks is that on the Love soundtrack with Within Without You.
Ah, right, yeah.
They put those two together and they really beef it up and remix it.
That album.
Oh man, I wish that would have been a real song.
I was in Vegas. When was it? In July, and I think I missed the Love show because I've been dying to see it. and I think I missed
so
it with
good.
that a couple of days, and I was like,
Yeah.
so hopefully it'll come round to Scotland soon
Yeah.
again. If not, I'll just have to fly back over to the States.
Yeah, it's so worth it. I've seen it twice now.
All
and
right,
it's-
excellent.
And I want to take the kids to go see it. And they changed it since the first time and the second time.
All
I've
right,
seen it.
okay. Have they got
Yeah.
have they got new tracks in it, or is
They did do different tracks, and they did like completely all different setups. They do have some of the same stuff. It had the same spirit, the same kind of like cars and characters and whatever. But there were songs the first time that I saw that they didn't play the second time. Or the second time they played that song, I was like, "Whoa, that was way more than it was the first time," you know. So it's cool. I highly recommend it.
Oh,
I think it's a good
excellent.
one. We're trying to go see that U2 one in the Sphere.
on the Sphere?
That looks amazing.
Unbelievable. I saw the videos and that of it, and again, I was lucky enough to be in Vegas for 4th of July, and I didn't even realise the Sphere was opening on the 4th of July, and my brother James called me. He was like, "How was the Sphere?" I went, "What?" He went, "The Sphere. Have you not saw it on social media?" And I went, "No." I looked out my hotel window just at the link, and you could basically see it. And I was like, "Oh man, I certainly need to do more research before I go away on holiday to find out what's happening."
Definitely.
So obviously, Tye, the first time that I ever seen you was in Scotland. Obviously, you were touring with Alien Ant Farm back in 2001. I'll never, ever, ever forget it. Your stage presence to this day still stays in my head. Your facial expression, but more so being able to dance around the stage whilst playing your bass lines. And again, I'm going to touch on a couple of your bass lines because I think some of the chord, some of the note changes, how you resolve back to like the one chord is phenomenal, especially in movies. But again, we can get back to that. But as I said, I first saw you guys 2001. It was, and I was actually looking at the lineup on that day, and man, what a great lineup! You had Eminem headlining, and you had Marilyn Manson, you had Papa Roach, you had Stained, you had yourselves, you had Queens of the Stone Age, and I was like, man, that was such a good day.
Yeah, we were all traveling like
all together
at that time, doing all of Europe. Yeah,
it was such a good time for music. I was wondering if you could share some insight on how Alien Ant Farm formed and in your role within that.
So, I was still playing guitar, teenager, kind of getting out of high school. With my brother's band. They had a band called The Color Red, and Mike and I started playing together because we were at a storage unit. That's where we would practice. They would let bands go in there and carpet up the place and practice there, rehearse there. So I always knew the band that Mike and Terry were in. They were good friends of mine since I was a little kid. I used to go see them before they were in the band, and I would go and play Primus songs. I'd go play Primus songs with Mike and Terry, and then Mike would be like, let's start a Primus band.
Okay.
So we would like play Primus covers or whatever Primus band, we called it Timus. And like do like backyard parties and stuff at his friends' houses.
Right.
And so we did that, and Mike and I decided that we were going to make a band, that we were going to do something together, because I never had played. I've been in serious bands, but always as a guitar player. I've never been in like a serious band as a bass player.
Okay, right.
So Mike and I decided to do something to where I'd be playing bass, and we had some musicians in mind, but we were kind of just at the time, we were just dreaming about the band, like who we would try to get and what would be the whole thing to do. And Terry ends up calling Mike, asking if he can be in Timus.
All right.
And Mike said, no, that's Ty's thing, and his best friend Anthony is in the group. So so he goes, well, let's try to start something else then. And he goes, well, we're kind of already working on it. I'll call Tye and ask him if he thinks it's cool if you join, or we try you out or whatever kind of thing. And so I was like, yeah, sure, let's give it a try. Never really gave it a thought. It was just like, okay, we have a guitar player. They already play together. Like, this could be cool. I played with Dryden. I met him at one of the Timeless parties, and I met him at a 311 concert. We just hung out and talked about like Mr. Bungle and stuff, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, this guy is going to try out to sing for us. Like, oh wow, okay, all right. He was very shy, and he was working on dreads, like, at the time, because we were, going to try to fit in with the whole new metal scene.
Right, okay, yeah.
This was 1995, so it was kind of just, the whole corn thing.
Yeah, was just what you say, yeah.
Was like happening. So, and we knew we wanted to be somewhere in between, like Korn and Mr. Bungle. We wanted to be somewhere in there where it's like kind of flashier musicianship, but that heaviness of Korn and what's kind of happening right now. So we wanted to be, relevant to the scene that was happening at the time, but we also wanted to do something where it's like you got a guy that's using the techniques of Primus. So I mean, that's basically how it formed. I was pretty excited because we were formed out of 3 different bands that were local in the scene that had a following. So our first show was pretty like it had a good amount of people there, like, to see what was going on. And I think we were very fortunate because it kind of stayed there. Like, we were always this kind of buzz in the scene and in the area. There was always a buzz about us.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are crazy. These guys, they play, it was kind of more like we were known at the time for being a little more intricate on our instruments. I wouldn't say crazy intricate. It wasn't like we were a prog band or whatever trying to do all these crazy riffs or solos or stuff, but it was just we were just giving it a little more to our riff.
I think Tye, you're 100% correct there in what you're saying. That's something certainly as a fan that I picked up. I remember like one of the movies, the song Movies. I remember listening to that song back in the day, and it was almost like if you focused in on each instrument, you were all doing your own thing. So you had the guitar player doing the, I'm sure I've heard you refer to it as the Pac-Man riff, the to do the Pac-Man riff, and then yourself, it's like you were following the kick pattern, but also introducing your own your own thing. The drummer, it just seemed to come together so well. But in particular, especially in the song Movies, I used to love the run that you did when it went to the kind of the bridge or the pre-chorus. So I want you to be free. I mean, up to that minor third, it used to just kind of it was building up tension. To be free up to that minor third, then bang, don't worry. And I always remember it was just a match made in heaven. But also, I also noticed that some of your technique in terms of like using the 16th notes. So don't worry, and then you went to I suppose not halftime as such, but you went to 8th notes during the kind of a breakdown section. So I mean, going back to what you were saying, would you say those were all conscious decisions, and in terms of wanting to come across as excellent musicians, essentially?
So I've always been the type of writer that just and sing it to myself.
All right, okay.
Just whatever is in there, and then I work it out what it is. So it's very rare that I would write something just by riffing.
All
or
right.
sitting down and doing something. Anytime I approach something, it's always what I'm singing or what's in my head, or I'm in the shower and I'll come up with something, then I get out and I record it real quick. Like, oh, what's that?
In case you lose
So
it.
it's so that being said, there's never any like school musicality or anything like that. That it starts off something first. There's never like, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to be like, I want to play in this key, I want it to be sad, so it's going to be minor, here's my cadence. Like, it's never something like that. It's always sit down and, you know, hum it out, go and find what it is. And that's the main way I write is if Terry was to come up with a riff, I'd be like, okay, play that, and then I just go and, you know, close my ears and I just like sing it, and then I work it out and I go, okay, here it is, this is what we're doing, you
Brilliant.
know. And if it's mine, same kind of thing, you know, I'll just sit here and come up with something. So there are times where you do get a rub, or you'd be like, oh, this isn't working right, then you have to bring out the tools that you know of what you've learned and stuff like that. But it's pretty rare, you know. It's pretty rare. Like, for the most part, everything works. You know. Excellent. But that's, you know, I've only when I was in actual music school that I had to learn or I had to write something that like had half a purpose. Got you. You know, you're working on a fugue or something like that for a counterpoint class. It's like, okay, you know, here's your theme. You got to do everything you could possibly do to it for 132 bars. Like, so that's like the only time I've really done that. Everything else has always been like just what's in my head.
What's in your head? Brilliant. Again, I've got my kind of approach has always been kind of a similar, where I'll maybe have a guitar player record a bit of rhythm, and I'll just start recording on the fly. And just start noting down different ideas. And again, Tye, I'm from the I've got music theory constantly in my head, and it's a bad thing, especially for creativity. As you say, it's good to have as a tool. From a creative point of view, I think it can hold you back a lot of times. But some of the best things that I've came up with, I've hit a note by mistake, and I went, oh, that sounds nice. And it's not. Then I started analysing it, going, oh, that's what that is. And so no, that's really interesting. It's a really good point to make there. So obviously, Tye, the Alien Ant Farm, obviously, Smooth Criminal. How did that song actually come about? Why did you want to record it? Because am I correct in saying that the song it got radio play, and that's when you decided to release it as a single? Is that correct?
Well, I mean, it first started kind of like as a joke. I was a big Moonwalker fan.
All right, okay.
And I watched that VHS tape probably, I don't know, I would, not exaggerating, probably close to 60, 70 times.
All right, okay. All right.
And so I was a really big fan of it. And one of those days I'm just hanging out with Mike, and I put it back on. And we go to rehearsal, because Mike and I, we would show up an hour, sometimes 2 hours before Terry and Dryden would show up.
All right, okay.
And we would work on ideas that I had, or these rhythms that he would have, you know, something like that. And we would make sense of them. Sometimes we would write whole songs, but we would write these parts, and then the guys would come in and go, check this out. Just as well as, like, we knew we had this hunger to be like a really tight, ridiculous rhythm section. And so we would just go there to like play Sting songs or something, you know, something that just had like a really good, you know, musical rhythmic foundation. You know, we'd go play like Jean-Luc Ponty, a lot of fusion stuff. But we'd also write and do things before the other guys got there. So one of those times, it was Smooth Criminal.
All right,
like I brought it in and I started jamming it with him, and it was like, so we kind of got comfortable in the groove. So we used to have this problem as a band that in between every song, it would take us a while to get to the next song because of tuning and whatever. And I would sit there, because the bass like never goes out of tune. I would sit there and I get bored, and no one wanted to hear me talk on the microphone because I would always make an ass out of myself. So I would just like start playing stuff in between songs and whatever. And Mike and I would just start grooving.
Just start jamming.
And Smooth Criminal was one of them.
Awesome.
And when we played it, people went crazy.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was a sign. Like, oh my God, people are going nuts on this. People are coming up to us after the show saying, you guys need to play that. You guys need to redo that. So we went out and got the bad cassette and learned the song, did it our way. And the great thing, it opened up so many doors.
Yeah.
Anytime we would go to any place, like we did a tour in Europe in '99, no one knew who we were. We hadn't been signed. We had no radio airplay, anything like that. We just went on over there because this promoter saw us in San Jose, and he goes, I do this thing out in Czech Republic, and it goes to France and wherever else it ended up going to. We every time we would play that, it would just knock the doors wide open, and everybody liked us.
Oh, excellent.
So, we put it on our own little thing called Slick Thief because we wanted to hide that it was a cover. We didn't know if we'd had to pay certain royalties or whatever. Yeah. Once we did the DreamWorks record, they were like, we didn't want to put it on the record.
Oh, really?
And DreamWorks was like, yeah, because we wanted to be known for our own stuff.
Of course. Yeah.
We had movies which we thought was going to do really well. We had Attitude, which we were hoping would be another single too.
Yep.
A couple songs in there, but when we played it for the A&R, like got up and played this song, and he was just like, oh my God, the first time he heard it, he goes, that's going to be a hit. That's going to be such a huge hit. Like, we have to put that out. We're like, we don't want to put it on the record. They're like, bullshit, you're recording that. You're recording that. We said, okay, well, can we put it at the end of the album or closer to the end of the album? And he was like, I don't care where you put it. You're putting it on the album. Yeah. So, we tried to start with movies, and we did a video real quick, and it started doing well, and then K-Rock New York just started playing Smooth Criminal, and it was over.
And that was it.
Everyone else picked it up, and it was just over. They forced us to make a video right away, and it was for this weird wrestling show that MTV was doing.
Yep.
And they were just like, this can be played every single day on MTV. If you do a wrestling thing, where we can put our stuff. But then it ended up getting too big, and they made its own video out of it,
Right.
And then we had TRL, where we were fighting and competing with everyone in the, world at that time for charts. In the UK, we were fighting Kylie Minogue and Bob the Builder.
Bob the Builder.
Number one. Yeah, for number one spots in UK radio. So it got pretty crazy, but that was basically it. It was kind of just like, it was a fun thing waiting for Terry to stop tuning his guitar.
All right, okay.
And let's play this and let's jam this for a second. And it ended up getting us to buy a house and stuff like that.
Excellent.
So,
brilliant.
cool.
How did the success of Smooth Criminal impact the band positively and even somewhat negatively, if it did?
Well, I would say it was positive because we got to fulfill our dreams. It was negative in the sense that we were never able to live up to that song.
Right, okay.
It was just too big, and everyone, it's not the best thing to be called one hit wonder. It's not the best thing to just be like, oh, those people only have that song. A lot of people did dive into the record, and a lot of people love that record and the following ones. But it always hurts when you give everything into every single song you write, and you come back and people are just like, oh, it's that Michael Jackson band, who cares? It's like, man, if you would just give it something more,
totally,
you would probably find something in there. So, and I think the band is not, till this day, still has not been able to live that down. So, it is what it is. It can it could, support everybody enough to go out and do, because I don't do it with them anymore. I play with a band called Slightly Stoopid now.
Yeah.
Well, I tech and play with them, but those guys are still doing it, and I imagine it's still paying their bills.
Yeah.
So that's another positive thing. Negative, also kind of going stir crazy. Like, we didn't get to go home for so long, and we were always being kind of told what to do and where we need to go. I don't know if some of our members were mature enough yet to do something like that. So we kind of got into some trouble here and there. I know the trouble still kind of happens with those guys, but I think we didn't really last that long. Only a couple years once we got signed, or once that song got big. Only a couple years did us 4 original members stay together. And then, just fights between guys and whatever. It just, I don't know, maybe a little bit of egos and I don't know, just stupidity and drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. I think it kind of
happens.
It allowed us, that song, and it getting so big, allowed us to, do a lot of bad things for ourselves in our career.
Well, it happened. It's rock and roll.
Yeah.
It's rock and roll. I remember watching you on an interview, and I'm sure you mentioned that a big part of the reason of you leaving Alien Ant Farm was down to the poor management. Would that be correct? So you gave the guys an ultimatum. It's either you or it's the management.
Yeah.
How did that come about, in terms of what were the management doing that you weren't supportive of, or you felt it was wrong for that Alien Ant Farm?
They weren't doing anything.
Right, okay.
That was the problem. They weren't doing anything. Nothing. They, it was just all talk and no results.
Right, okay.
And we were sitting there talking to them all the time. We need to get this done. We have to have this happen. And they would go, oh, yeah, I talked to this guy. This is going and this is in motion. And then it just wouldn't happen. And we're just, my whole thing was, well, either you don't know how to do business, or you're not influential enough to get things done.
Yeah.
And so my whole thing was we put up with it for a certain amount of time. And I was just, I'm done with these guys.
Yeah.
Like, we got to fire them. This is what has to happen. I don't believe we had a signed contract with them or anything, and I'm sure they would have tried to sue us and get something on. But at that time, they worked down, because when we first got back together, we had a buzz and we were doing shows and things were going really well for us. And I felt like they kind of dwindled that, them with the record label as well, but the management kind of dwindled that down to where no one really cared. And it was taking too long to get something out. We weren't capitalizing on the buzz about coming back out. So that's basically what it was. They just weren't working for us. They weren't doing anything for us. And I talked the band into firing them. And they all agreed. I sent an email out to them firing them, saying that the band all agrees that we'll be parting ways and looking for new management. And he wrote an email back once again saying, we could fix this. There's these things I have going on and whatever. And I was, the band was emailing me saying like, yeah, he's right. We can fix this. So we can work on this. And I just said, if this is the path you guys want to go down, I'm out. So like, I'm not gonna deal with this one more day.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. And it wasn't like they were just like, okay, the management, then we're going to take the management. We don't need you. It was more the sense like, we can't quit. We can't do this. We got to keep working. I was like, you heard me. I'm not working with them anymore.
Yeah. Right.
So until they are fired, I'm gone.
Yeah.
And it just got to the point to where there was no coming back, because too much shit was being talked online about me. And, a lot of things that just were not true.
Yeah.
And I decided to take the high road until the album came out. and they removed my songwriting credits off of half of the album.
Shit.
And that's, to me, is like, that's to not give credit where credit's due.
Correct.
That is
that's
like
wrong.
the carnal sin to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Surely you would have had a legal case.
Well, I threatened them.
Right.
I went to the record label. I went to the management. I went to the band. I went to Mike. Mike was the only one that I've actually talked to since that all went down.
So have you not talked to Dryden or Terry since?
No, I ran into Dryden at Mike's house. We went to go see a friend's band, and he was pretty inebriated. And he came in, he gave me a hug, and I immediately went outside because I really wanted nothing to do with the guy.
Yeah.
The amount of stuff that he said about me and the way he treated the whole situation, I was just like, I'm moving on. You know, I don't need to have this guy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So he came up to me during a show that we all went to, and basically said two very insulting things about friends and my brothers, and I was just like, that's it. I want nothing to do with this guy. Like, he's just a disgusting human being. So I haven't talked to him since that time, and that was several years ago. And I still haven't talked to Terry. They text me. I think Terry texted me when he found out that I had cancer. And I think I just replied, thank you, and that was it. So, it's not that I like harbor bad feelings, even though that, whole album thing and them trying to be, shady like that and pull my name off of songs I clearly wrote or helped writing.
Yeah, totally.
I don't really like harbor anything. Is more of just like, I just don't want to do that anymore. I want to do my own thing.
Moved on. You've moved on.
Just want to move on.
Yeah. So you mentioned the time, obviously, having cancer. Obviously, I remember reading about that, and all good now. Yeah.
So far,
awesome.
it wasn't that big of a. It wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, it was very scary. But, it was like an 85% chance. Everyone that I talked to, they were telling me no chemo, because they wanted to put me on chemo and all that. And it was kind of like a just in case thing. And I was like, no. I mean, I was out for a while after the operation, and I was, eating differently. I tried to go vegan, which ended up killing me. Like, oh my God.
Right.
That was so terrible. I've never had so much gas and uncomfortable, all that stuff in my life. Like,
really?
Being vegan was just a nightmare.
Right.
And I tried it for a while, lost a bunch of weight, tried to get really healthy, but it was just super uncomfortable. But, I have to go in and do tumor tests, and I have to go in and do CT scans. For a while there was like every month, and then every couple months, and then, half a year, and then every year. So now it's kind of like at every year.
Okay, no, I'm glad to hear I'm glad to hear you're healthy and on the mend. So out Alien Ant Farm, obviously you then started touring with Limp Bizkit. Can you tell me, what would you say is the differences between obviously being the touring band performing and the touring band as the tech? Because I would imagine you're still doing what the band's doing, except and I know that Limp Bizkit invites you out onto stage as well, which is awesome. But what would you say is the main kind of differences there, and do you prefer it?
Yes and no. It's I do miss playing, but all the worries and the pressure and all that stuff from having a touring band and a working band is completely gone. Like, I still, like right now, Ant Farm, they have like a Sprinter van, and that's what they tour in.
Right. Okay.
And I was fortunate enough to, I've done several van tours and stuff since then, but I've never done it as a tech. Like, I've always worked for bands that take really good care of their techs. They pay them really well. so I still get to be in the lifestyle. I still get to be around it. It's really cool that bands always let me come and play with them.
Yeah.
You know, I filled in for Robbie on shows for Godsmack.
All right.
Sam would always hand me the bass to play, you know, my way, and so that stuff is really cool. You know, the only difference is that there's a schedule and you're responsible for gear.
Right.
And I was, you know, like the jobs that I had before being a professional musician was working with gear, selling gear, fixing gear. So it's basically the same thing, setting up guitars and teching stuff. And so it's kind of like the same thing, but I get to do it on the road. I still get to see a lot of people. I've been in the same place now for, God, how long have I been with Stupid? It's been like 7 years, going on 8 years or something like that. So I've gotten really comfortable in that situation, and the job is pretty easy now because I just know what has to happen. I know what we look forward to, what the band wants, what they don't want, you know. And on top of that, you know, I get to play. I've learned, I don't know, I filled in for when one of the guys has been out, you know, and I've played whole shows where it's just me on bass the whole time. Right. Now I'm playing a lot of guitar with them as a second guitar player. Cool. So it's you know, it has its privileges. Like the thing that sucks, like, you know, you have to get up sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning to go load into a festival. Got you. And when you're getting into town or getting there kind of late at night just because the way things working, or I have to be there to ship stuff out, or have to go down to the studio just when no one's there and there's no music going on, and I have to deal with gear and equipment stuff. But at the end of the day, it pays well enough. It feeds my family, you know. And you're doing something it takes care of them, and I really enjoy the people that I work with. Perfect. You know.
What more do you need? You know what I mean? Doing something.
I feel like I'm with Slightly Stoopid, I'm in a real special situation. You know, like I work for the band, but I also am doing recordings with them in the studio for their new record. You know, there's been moments where we like blocked out a week and we all went in there, and I'm like, actually, some of my suggestions or my bass lines are being used in the song. So now it's like I'm going to be getting residuals now from their stuff. Perfect. And they have me learn more and more songs. It could be like, you know, there's some shows where I played 6-7 songs in a show. Right. You know, and you know, I'm teching and taking care of them too, but I'm also, they treat me as if I'm like a band member, but also a guy that takes care of them. Yep. You know, excellent. So I'm very privileged, and I get to tour to where I'm not on tour usually while my kids are in school, so I can handle my kids when I'm off tour, and then when I go on tour is when they're on breaks and stuff. So it works out really well for me.
Cool. I mean, I was listening to Slightly Stoopid a couple of days ago. You could just sit and vibe to Slightly Stoopid for hours. It's just absolutely, it's absolutely love it. I'll be honest with you, Tye, because it's a band that I never really knew about until a couple of years ago, when obviously I got to know you on Facebook, etc. And but yeah, just a good solid vibe. And I mean, you mentioned about recording there as well. I'm actually going to get into that and very soon with you. So being a guitar tech, Tye, and as I say, I'm a guitar player myself, I always wanted to ask, have you got any pet peeves that really annoy you when you see someone handling a guitar? So for example, it's when I see someone restringing a guitar and they've only got like half a turn of the string, and I'm like, what are you doing? Put the guitar down, leave it alone. I was just wondering, is there any pet peeves that you have that you wish people would stop doing?
Well, see, I've gotten to the being a roadie thing so much, so it's usually like how you keep your stage, how you get on and off of your stage, because I've been primarily with headliners since the beginning.
Yeah.
Of teching professionally. And it's always like our stuff is always set up on stage, and we have other bands that we have to get on and off. So it's usually how they conduct themselves that way. A lot of bands don't like to pay a lot of money, so they'll get new guys all the time. And you get a lot of questions. I love helping people out, but you do get a lot of questions and, hey, we need this, or they won't have techs. And they'll come out, they think they can do things themselves, and you can't.
Yeah, totally.
Because you just, there's a certain process and a timely manner that everything needs to be done. And the benefit of having a tech is that they know, they can bring a full stage setup with lights.
Yep.
Several different band members, keyboards, drum risers that are 3-4 feet high or whatever. And a roadie or a tech or whatever you want to call them, they can, a professional one, I'd say, they can grab all that stuff, get it to the proper places and get it out of the way and deal with it once they get off stage. So that, my pet peeves mainly is people taking too long getting off stage. If your production's too big for your crew, then you need to scale it down, or you're being rude.
Oh, you need,
yeah,
totally.
Because then we have to get involved because our show still has to happen on time. Other than that, it's like with the setups of guitars and stuff, like the string windings or just overall action. But a lot of players don't know either, and they'll come up to me and be like, "Oh, they have a guy that'll be like, well, I'm not really a guitar tech. I'm more of a monitor engineer, but I'm trying to be guitar tech." And I'll hold up the instrument and just go, "Oh man, how do you guys not know?" Like what kind of action you should have and how this thing's set up. It's really not that difficult. So it's kind of hard to say that it's a pet peeve because I like teaching people.
Yeah.
I like helping people out. That's how you get closer to the other bands.
That's a really good point as well. So, certainly my experience has been, I think there's a lot of performers who don't realise what it takes, and they don't have the experience of what happens behind the scenes. I've played with many musicians where I've took on the role as sound tech as well as performing, and they're talking about, I don't really like the sound of how that sounds, but they're hearing it behind the speakers, and I'm like, you can't make that call behind speakers. You have to go out the front and listen to what the audience listens to. You listen to your monitor. That's all you should be concerned about, and they don't really do that. But that's really interesting. So as I say, Tye, you mentioned about recording and obviously and playing live. I'm just wondering, could you give a kind of a brief breakdown of what a typical studio rig looks like, and also what your live rig would look like?
So I've scaled back a bunch since technology has gotten so much better. I wouldn't say there's no need to have amazing amps, because they do sound better in the studio. They definitely do. But technology's gotten so close. So what I like to do is, anytime I'm going to do like live drums, live guitar, like the bulk of the guitar, and live bass, I like to go to a studio.
Okay.
So I'll always go to a studio, get an engineer, because they know best. They can make a room sound the best, And I have a guy I've been using for years now, and that's what we usually do. We get the good amps, the good sounds, and that's like our foundation. Now, if I need to overdub anything on a guitar or anything like that, using a plug-in works great. I have the ability to, in my house where I do most of my recordings now, I have the ability to record 8 tracks of drums. I got like the Neve knockoff setups.
All right,
the
cool.
1073s, for an input chain, and that's what that's mainly what I'm using for my sound. All my vocals I do here at the house. I could just kind of work leisurely as I want, and I just use my preamp to make everything sound better. Yeah. So I only need 2 channels really Everything else is like your basic like Focusrite interfaces. I don't like to spend too much money, but I like it to sound good.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
Speakers I've been using forever, so I'm super used to them. The one thing that I always am really concerned about upgrading is the actual computer. You know,
okay.
So it just runs quick and efficiently. Other than that, you know, I like to, you know, get the foundation. If it's like a real recording, like I just finished a Meek record. It's our second one, and you know, I'm in the process of sending over the tracks to have it mixed this weekend. And I'm just going through it, and it's like there's a lot of stuff I just did an overdub here, and I put a simple plug-in in, and I go, dude, that sounds great, you know, because I have all the other guitar, like I recorded with the Saldana that sounded amazing in the studio. So we were using that, and you know, Fenders, Strats with Seymour Duncan customs in them, and it just, we got a really good clean tone and a real good heavy tone, and anytime we need some kind of like, you know, we just need this little guitar overdub or whatever, we just use a plug-in. You can't really tell the difference once you do that, you know.
That's something, Tye, that I've been telling students over the years, especially when I'm teaching them studio setups. I'm like, always get the source sounding great. I like, so for me, for example, I like to use the API preamp going into an 1176 for the bass. That's it. And I said, and if I do need anything above that, it's a plug-in. I went, they sound awesome. And as you say, technology's moved on so much. I mean, myself, with the band that I play in, I'm fully digital now. I don't even have a back line anymore. I started using the Boss GT1000, and it is incredible. The stereo setups that you can have, the signal chains, it's all you need, in my opinion, for a live setup. So no, it's absolutely phenomenal. So on the subject of technology, I've got a few questions here from students that they did want me to ask you. So first of all, Tye, AI technology is obviously a big talking point, not just in the music industry, but obviously worldwide. How do you think AI, or what do you think the role of AI is going to be in music? And do you think it's a positive one, or it's going to be a negative one?
Well, I mean, at first I think it's going to be video.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be things that you see, and they're going to start using AI in videos like crazy, because it's just going to be generated so much faster than having some, you know, like a effects or whatever graphics engineer put something together. I'm actually looking to use it for my first video on this record, first single, because I have this concept where I think it would look really cool if it was done in AI.
Yeah.
Now, I would use it as a tool, as a creative tool, instead of as being lazy.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it's also going to promote, is being lazy.
Yeah.
I think it's going to put a lot of jingle musicians out of business, which is unfortunate.
Yeah,
I know
totally.
it's already putting writers out of business.
Yeah.
Because it's just so much easier to just give the computer a scenario. It has an endless source of influence, and you know, and it's all there. It can grab any sound it wants. It's connected to everything in the world.
Yeah.
So it's obvious going to be, you know, it's going to have more resources and stuff. But I don't know if it will ever be my favorite band. You know, I think it's always going to require humans and their creativity in order to do that. You know, I'm sure it'll get pretty good. I mean, I guess AI can have any person sing that they'd want to sing.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, this is it.
Which, you know, is going to make other people rich because they'll have more reasons to sue. Yeah, because you're just, Mike Patton's going to be like, wait a minute, I didn't sing that.
I didn't sing that.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things that I heard AI doing, I said I'm a big Oasis fan, and it was getting Liam Gallagher to sing Noel Gallagher's High Flying Bird songs. And I'm not saying, oh, that was excellent, it was so much better. I don't mean that at all. It was just interesting. It was like, that's how that would sound. So, and I think you mentioned a key word there, using it as a tool. So I mean, the new Beatles song, Now and Then. So me and a few of my musician friends, we have different opinions on that song. Me personally, I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's great that we can be in 2023 and we have a new Beatles song that we could listen to. And then the minute you mention AI to someone, they think it's just AI, and I'm like, no. Then having to explain to them, no, they took the demo and they've used AI to extract the vocal, therefore being able to clean that vocal up and make it sound like a studio recording. And I think there's going to be a lot of that. I think people are maybe just maybe ill-informed, and they don't understand the technology. I mean,
well, the Beatles thing, I went through that with everybody over here. They're like, oh, they had AI do this, and I'm like, no, they didn't. They absolutely did not have AI do that. That is John Lennon singing. I go, you have to watch the little 12-minute documentary. Yeah, it'll explain exactly what they do. Like, as I wouldn't consider myself an engineer, but I do engineering because I have to record so much.
Yep.
But I do the same kind of things. I'll go into a like an EQ, heavily band EQ, and I'll start pulling frequencies out because there's something in there that I don't like.
Yeah.
And it's basically what they did, and then they bring in the AI to fill in the pieces.
Correct.
You know?
Correct.
And you can remove clicks. You know what I mean? If you have like a click in a headphone mix, there's ways that you can do that just by using the same kind of technology they're doing, EQing things out and getting rid of things. Yeah. So it's definitely not AI. And it's crazy that so many people believe they did, because the one person said, with AI we were able to. Now it's like, they just put John Lennon singing this. It's like, dude, I'm sorry, the estate and everybody, if they had an AI singing for John, would speak. I don't know if John would be approving of that. So, because that's where I'm like, dude, there's going to be so many lawsuits that's going to have they're going to have to create a law, a copyright law, an infringement law of people's voices and stuff, because if they're passed away and they don't give their permission to use their likeness or something like that, they're not under contract with a studio that allows it, you're going to get a lot of lawsuits.
I mean, I'm curious,
as soon as the money portion comes into it.
I mean, I'm very curious how they are going to police that and what would constitute as a likeness to someone's voice. I think we're in for some interesting times.
It'll be easy to police it if someone's making money.
That's
the thing. If they're not making money on it, there's not much you can do. But if they start making money, it's going to be easy to police it, because all you have to do is just say, give me that money.
Give me that money.
I'll sue you, and I'll make a judge make you give it to me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So another question I had from students was, how important do you think a formal education in music is to be able to work in the music industry?
I don't think it's important. Well, I would say I don't think it's required at all. I think it's important if you're a songwriter and you want to expand your horizons, or if you want to be able to communicate with people that can do what you can't do. So if you're not able to play a violin or any orchestral instrument, but you would like to have it on there, I think it's very important that you'd be able to somewhat speak their language, at least know where to write something that would be comfortable in their octaves that they like playing in, or understanding where they write in and what's what that instrument's really used for. So I think, if anything, it's good to know the basis just for talking to musicians, but it's also good to take, like, say an orchestration class or a writing, like a concerto writing class. instruments, so you can learn what it's like to make every single instrument that you don't know how to play be like a solo or a lead. You know, so you could really understand how well that instrument works. So as far as chord changes and stuff like that, like learning how you can spell out chords, you know, that's always good for remembering things. It's always good for hiring musicians. But you know, does it help with creativity and stuff like that? I mean, it can. There's some rules that you can use. I mean, that I use when I'm like orchestrating something for a part. What I'll do is if I'll come up with a part that say I want like a string pad in. So I'll orchestrate 4-part harmony, sometimes 5. I'll do violin 1s and 2s, violas, cellos, double them on bass, all stuff that I've learned by doing, you know, being in school. And I'll orchestrate a whole part, and then I'll remove what shouldn't be there, and then I'll synthesize what's left over. And it just ends up becoming something cooler. So I'll use the education to create a foundation, you know, and use counterpoint as a foundation. And then I remove it away and I turn it into like what a keyboard player would play if he's not like the greatest keyboard player. Like he's just trying to figure it out. So now we're back to being musical again without, you know, being overbearing and educational. So that's kind of like how I would use, that's how I use it. And that's what I think it's important. It's basically so you're not as limited. You know?
No, excellent.
Not as limited, and you have the ability to talk to other musicians. Because there's some people that only talk in music.
Totally.
You know? And it's really... if you don't know much about it and you get in that conversation, you're screwed.
Totally.
You have no idea what they're talking about.
Again, I remember a good friend of mine, I would start speaking in music terms. I'm like, oh, you're playing a Dorian mode there. I see you're going into like a 1037, a 1073, blah, blah. All of this tech talk, the music talk, and then the stuff he was coming out with, incredible. And I'm like, how? So it's two, in my opinion, it's two different worlds, but I think both can complement each other if used correctly. So Tye, I can't thank you enough for this. Just lastly, I was wondering if you could tell us about any upcoming projects or plans you've got for the future, and most importantly, have you got any plans to come to Scotland?
Oh man, I would love to. I would love to come to Scotland. Like the last time I've been to Europe and gone over there, it's been so long. Like I think the last time I was in Scotland was probably with Limp Bizkit back in 14 or whatever. I don't know if I've been there since. So, because I think we did the what's it called? That spot in Glasgow. What is it called?
Oh, you got the O2. Oh, the Glasgow Land, the Barrowlands.
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 I think we did the Barrowlands with them, like at 14 or something like that.
Right.
But so what I'm working on right now, January, we're gonna start recording the Slightly Stoopid record. We'll probably be doing that for the next couple months at the top of the year. I am sending my project. It's a band called Meek. It's our second record. We're sending that into a mix, hopefully doing vinyl.
All right.
I'm still painting the cover and the back cover right now.
Cool.
I like to do the whole art project. To me, an album is an art project. So, you know, all the songwriting, you know, like I want it to be creative and what I want it to be. I want the album, like the artwork to look a certain way and everything. And it's just really, really cool to be able to do something like that. So
awesome.
I'm not exactly sure when that's coming out. Just started talking about doing a video, but, you know, kind of got to get the music mixed before you can start doing everything. Hopefully it gets mixed by this weekend. And the following 2 weeks after that will be just for recalls and getting it all done. And then off to mastering. I'm hoping that it'll be done by the end of this year, because we only have 5-6 more weeks of this year left. So I'm hoping to have that out and then start a campaign probably as we're recording the Slightly Stoopid stuff, start a campaign for Meek.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically what I'm working on, releasing or playing on or whatever, 2 records right now.
Awesome.
Getting one out.
Superb, Tye.
So.
Well, Tye, thank you so much for your time. I feel I could spend hours just talking to you regarding music. So hopefully the first of many. I'm going to let you shoot just now, Tye. Thank you so much again, and I'll hopefully speak to you soon. I'll post this video up, and I'll give you a wee tag if that's all good with you.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Awesome, Tye. You have a great day, my friend.
You too, man.
All right, dude.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
man.
much.
Cheers. Bye bye.